I'd like you to imagine your dream life. See the version of you who has what you want to have, feels how you want to feel, and is who you want to be. I'm Brittany Hoopes, your hypnotherapist and manifestation coach, and this is the show where I'll teach you to master the full power of your mind, to guide you on your journey towards destination manifestation.
Take a step back for the ones who can't do that.
You're listening to the Destination Manifestation Podcast, helping you to align both your conscious and your subconscious mind to manifest a life of your dreams. How are you guys doing today? I will say Merry belated Christmas if you celebrate. I hope Santa or whoever, your family, your friends, I hope they were all good to you and you got everything. I hope you manifested some goodies. Let me just say that. If you're already subscribed to the show, thank you so much. And today we're discussing something that you may have never known you needed. Because if you're anything like me, or if you're anything like the hundreds of clients that I've taught this to, because it comes up quite a bit in my one-on-one hypnotherapy and coaching sessions. If you really internalize and listen to what we're discussing today, your life will be forever changed. And I know that sounds very dramatic, and I do have a flair for the dramatics, but I am not kidding you. I am not exaggerating. This concept that we're going to be discussing today literally had like a mind-blowing effect and truly an impact on my life when I really got it. Not when I first heard it, but when I got it. You know the difference? You know the difference when like you might hear a piece of advice, but then there's one day where you like really just get it? Actually, I can tell you what's happening there. It's when it finally goes into your subconscious mind as opposed to just being a conscious thought. And so I want to explain this concept to you here today so that you don't just hear it consciously, but you really get it. You get it at the deepest level, the subconscious level too. And so what we're going to be talking about today is how to release indecision and make decisions that support the life you want to live and the things that you want to manifest. Because when you know how to make decisions with ease, with certainty, with confidence, when you can make those decisions quickly, that's when you really begin to up your manifestation game. You get to accelerate those manifestations that come into your life. Because when it comes down to it, decision making, the art and the act of looking at your choices and making a decision of how you'll move forward really is kind of a form of alchemy, I would say. It's a way that we can transmute energy to support a life of our own design. And indecision, feeling like you aren't sure what choice you want to make, like kind of reveling in that sense of confusion, is kind of a splitting of that energy. And split energy is kind of like split milk. It's nasty, it smells foul, and it literally repels you away from what you want. It's not good, all right? And most of all, it's just weaker, right? It has resistance inherent to it. And that's that push or that pull feeling, that dissonance that you feel of being pushed in one way, pulled in another, that you feel when you don't know what decision to make. And so to learn how to make powerful decisions is really learning how to harness all of your own energy into the singular direction of your dreams. And when all your energy is going in one direction that you have chose and it's all kind of working together, that helps bring in your manifestations with more power. We don't want the split energy. We want all the energy moving in the same and right direction, which is the direction that you deliberately choose. So as we talk today, I want you to kind of use this as a mini coaching session, right? I want you to think of a decision that you're either in the process of making right now or a decision that you know you'll make at some point in time in the new year. We're about to ring in a new year in 2024. Because having a decision in mind will make all of this kind of feel a lot more concrete to you and actionable as we kind of discuss these things, okay? So you got that in mind? Let's move forward. So what is the key to successful decision making, to making a decision that resonates with you and that adds to your life and helps you manifest your dreams. It really comes down to a simple 2-step process. And I'm going to break that down for you, okay? The first step is making the decision. And you would kind of think like, well, Brittany, isn't that the whole thing? Decision making, it's about making the decision. No, there's a second step that I would say is even more important, which is lining up with that decision, getting behind it, and truly liking your reasons for why that decision is the best decision that you could be making right now. Finding those reasons and focusing purely and dedicated on them. So let's break down these 2 steps because it's simple, but that doesn't always mean that it's easy. So let me explain. To release indecision, you have to make a decision. That's pretty obvious, right? But here's the thing. Notice that I didn't say make the quote unquote right decision. I didn't even say make the decision that feels right to you. What I am saying is you can literally make any decision. You have all these choices before you. Any of them can be the right decision. You could pick randomly. You could throw a dart and just see where it lands. I don't care how you make your decision, okay? That's completely up to you. It's just that a decision needs to be made. Because here's the thing, we spend so much time in this kind of in-between, right? We're not picking A, and then we're not picking B, but when you do that, you are picking something. You're picking C, which is indecision. So technically, when we look at it that way, there really is no such thing as a state of indecision. You're always picking something. No decision is a decision. What are you picking by staying in what we consider that state of indecision? What you're picking is staying stuck. What you're picking when you stay in a state of indecision is you're picking less information to move forward with. That's the choice you're making, whether you recognize it or not. And so many times we think, oh, I'm just going to put on the brakes. Therefore I don't have to make this decision. But really, you're picking that, and that is probably the worst decision you can make of all. So the first step is making a decision. It already gets you halfway there just by making a choice, by being deliberate with your choice, because it moves you towards a state of more information. Once you make that decision, once you take that action, that's going to supply you much more information that you had compared to back when you were in that state of indecision or stuckness, right? Because let's face it, very few decisions in our life are truly irreversible. But what I am asking you is to make a choice, because once you make that choice, you move yourself towards a situation where you can learn more to decide if that's just a decision you still want to make. Like I said, very few decisions are truly, truly, truly permanent. But many of our decisions, if we make it, then we can evaluate, yep, this is working, or no, this is not. We have more information, more fodder than we did back when we originally made the choice. You get what I'm saying? So step 1 is making the decision. And I would say that's about 10% of this process. Really, the other 90% of this process, the most important part of making decisions that align with your manifestations, are about lining up the energies of your decision, getting behind your decision and liking your reasons. So what does it mean to get behind your decision? Like, what does that even mean? It's about having your own back. It's about instructing your brain to say, okay, I've decided A. Now let's search, brain, for all the reasons why A is the best decision for me. And let's just focus there. Because the truth is, you're already past step 1. You already made the decision to go with A. I'm just using this as an example, right? You have A or you have B. You've been stuck in C. You have A, you have B. You decided A. So now let's look for all the reasons why A is the best decision. Why am I going to make A be the best thing ever for me? And let's list all the many reasons why you're happy that you decided A. Because you already did step 1. We're not in the deciding phase anymore. It's already been decided. Staying stuck is when you continue to weigh the pros and cons of multiple choices. Okay, but step 1 is when you make and you pick that one choice. And step 2 is when you focus on the reasons why that one choice that you made is the best choice for you right now. And what I love about this, and this is why I say that there's no such thing as a wrong decision, is because you can find the reasons why that's the best choice for you, regardless of what it is. You can pick A and find the best reasons. You could pick B and find the best reasons. You could probably even pick C and find the best reasons why staying stuck is best for you right now. It doesn't matter as long as you're finding and focusing on those reasons and those reasons only. Because living from a place of indecision is when you choose, let's say A, but then you're still thinking about B. You feel the dissonance in that? You feel like how you're looking at A, but then your mind is looking at B. And that's when you siphon off your energy towards those choices that you told yourself that you were letting go of back during step 1. And that's why you feel so split and conflicted and you feel stuck. So once you make a decision, that's step 1. Get all your energy behind it 100%. That is step 2, because it's that energy that you harness, all of it going in the same direction, that's going to make that decision a successful one for you. It gives you the power to make that choice. Let's say it's choice A, the right one for you. And I'll tell you a funny story about this. You guys know I've had this podcast for a while now, right? It started September 7th, lucky number 7. You know, like most of us in this instant gratification society that we all live in, I'm susceptible to it too, right? I launched this podcast September 7th. A week later, by September 14th, I'm like, where's my Oscar? Where's my millions of downloads? Why hasn't it happened yet, right? I mean, I'm kidding. I know that there's no such thing as Oscars, and I didn't have those kind of expectations, but I was really jumping the gun, especially looking back at it, right? I was like looking for instant results and freaking myself out when 1 million people hadn't listened to my show within 1 week, right? I started to doubt if having this podcast and all the work that goes into it that's required, if that was for me. Natural thing to do. But all of a sudden, this doubt started creeping up and it forced me to make a decision. And I was thinking to myself, should I stick with this podcast or should I let it go and just sort of chalk it up to learning and, quote unquote, a failure? Dun, dun, dun. And I laugh now, right? Because the proposition was kind of absurd and it was not realistic whatsoever. And spoiler alert, I realize this. It wasn't even really based in reality. But to me, in that moment, I had a decision to make. As the song goes, do I stay or do I go now, right? And I was so stuck on this idea of making the right decision. Like there was some right decision and there was some wrong decision. And if I didn't pick the right one, my life was in business was going to be over, very not true things. Am I wasting my time? What if I stick with this and then no one ever listens to the show and then I've wasted all this time and energy and I hang my head in sorrow, Spoiler alert, you and thousands of folks just like you do listen to the show. So I'm glad I stuck with it, right? This episode wouldn't be here if I hadn't done that. I had this idea that there was some magical right decision out there. And then there was these wrong decisions lurking, in the decision mix. And they were trying to trick me. And I somehow needed to see into the future to know which decision to make, right? I think we all do this at some point in time. And that's why I want you to hear this story. But here is the truth of it that I realized, okay? When you line up with the decision that you make, and when you like your reasons for that decision and you look for all the many ways why it is the best decision for you right now, that's how you make that decision a success. There isn't a decision that is inherently successful or decision that's inherently a failure. No, it's the lining up of the energies that makes any decision successful or the not lining up of the energies that will make any decision unsuccessful. You make that decision the right one. There's no decision that is inherently right or inherently wrong. You are the one through your thoughts that makes it so. So in this case, I decided to stick with it. I decided to make this show a success. That's what I decided. I decided to stick with it and I decided to freaking like it. And I love it. I love talking to you guys. Like, this is so much fun. And I focused all of my attention on this topic, not on the lack of downloads or this or that at the time, but on all the ways why this was going to be the perfect medium to communicate and teach with you all and get to know you and you to get to know me and to share about what I do for a living, which is hypnotherapy and coaching, right? And to help you live your best life. I harnessed all that energy. And when I say energy, I primarily mean the energy that you create through your focus and attention through your thoughts, right? That's how we harness the purpose of this podcast, which is to harness the conscious and the subconscious mind, which is through the energy that we create through our thoughts, the energy that is created through your focus and your attention. And that, by harnessing all that energy in that direction, it freed that energy up to make the show a success. And what you know, it has become one. And I am very happy that I didn't listen to old September me who was doubting, how fast these things would come, right? You just stick with it and you make it a success. So much of our suffering comes from our thoughts and our actions not aligning. From making one decision, but then turning around and thinking thoughts that don't support it. Or in the case of picking choice C, right, is making 0 decisions and taking 0 actions, but then wanting it to be different, which means having thoughts that this should be different. Because not taking an action is just as valid as taking an action, and having thoughts that you want that to be different is just as dissonant and creates just as much of a split energy. So when it comes to decisions, I want you to kind of almost visualize, where are your actions pointed? And then where are your thoughts about those actions pointed? Are they pointed and working together in the same direction? If they are, great. I bet this decision is going to feel really good to you. And I bet you probably aren't even having an issue with it. It feels good. You're moving in the same direction. But if they aren't, if they're pointed in different directions, your thoughts are this way and your decisions are another way, that's when it begins to feel off or there's doubt. That's when we create what we consider an issue. And so what do? Then it becomes, well, what do you want to change? The thoughts or the actions? And usually in those cases, I decide first what element, the thought or the action, is non-negotiable to me. And I'm going to give you kind of 2 examples coming at it from both ways, right? So here's an example of where I chose my decision for what action I would take was the non-negotiable piece. And then I needed to get my thoughts to match that action so that we could go in the same direction as that action. So this is an example I love to give because it was really, truly the moment that I got what we're talking about. Earlier this year, back in the spring, I was invited to an open house for an opening of a new photography studio of this photographer that I've used for my business before. And I had volunteered to support this photographer by offering a free hypnotherapy session as kind of a raffle prize at this open house. And I had RSVP'd with her months prior. I said that I would go. I said that I would support her. And when the actual day rolled around for this open house, I was in my car and I was driving the hour or so drive that it took to get to this party. And I will tell you guys, I'm an introvert through and through. My introvert spidey senses were like firing off. It was like, no, there was so much internal resistance within me of like, why did I say I would go to this party? I wanted nothing less than to go to this party, okay? I felt like I was dreading going to this party. And there were times where I felt like my hands like literally were like trying to make me turn this steering wheel so that I would turn on around and go back home. But then I had a thought that changed my life. This is when I truly learned the power of making a decision and then lining up with it. And so in this case, I had made the decision that I was going. It was a non-negotiable to me. I wasn't going to let down this photographer. I knew that I'm the kind of person that when it comes to making a commitment, I usually keep it, especially when it comes to my business. I knew that there wasn't really any like solid reason why I didn't want to go. Okay. There wasn't like, it was just kind of like, I don't want to, not like, oh, there's an emergency that I need to get home to, or I'm feeling genuinely sick or anything like this. Right. Like it was just kind of my perceived social discomfort. So I was going. That action, that element of the decision was my step one. It was non-negotiable. So then for step two, I had two choices. I could either go and be miserable. And by miserable, I mean I would think miserable thoughts all night, thoughts that created misery within me. I could be awkward and standoffish. I could think about how much I hate parties, gatherings, and small talk. I could, overanalyze every little thing I said to somebody and like wonder if like that was the right thing to say or what they thought about it. I could hang out by the snack table and be like this wallflower and not really talk to anyone, right? These were the scenarios that were going on in my head. I could feel self-conscious that I was there by myself. And I would probably sneak out early after the raffle drawing and like no one would really notice. And I'd waste my entire evening. Essentially, I could hate my decision to go to this party all night and have a miserable time. I've done that in plenty of parties. That's a choice that I could make. And frankly, like I said, I had made that choice. I would say maybe subconsciously, not as consciously as I realized here now. I had made that choice before, which was one of the reasons why I was so hesitant to want to go to this party. Like I knew that that was not fun. I did not enjoy that. Or if I'm going, since I've just determined that that was the non-negotiable part of my decision, I could go and enjoy it. I could have fun. Meaning that I could think thoughts that felt fun to me. I could find reasons why this was the best thing I could be doing with my evening right that day. I could talk with other small business owners and learn from them. Maybe I could even make some local friends or meet some new clients, which, spoiler alert, I did both. And if I'm here, I could enjoy it. I could line up all those energies behind that decision and say, hell yeah, like let's have a great time. How might this party surprise me and what I think I know about social gatherings and how I show up? And so when I looked at those two choices, right, this is part of step 2, looking at and evaluating your choices and lining up your energies. The first one, I felt all the split energy in that. Like deciding to go, but then also deciding to be awkward and count down the minutes until I could leave. Like that was very resistant. There was a lot of split energy in that. And when I looked at it that way, I felt how split that was. I felt how off that felt. Do you see in this example how split and how those things are going in opposite directions, and no wonder you feel this push and pull? I felt the resistance in that. I felt the split energy-ness of that. I felt how that was pulling me in opposite directions. The action was taking me one way, but my thoughts were taking me the exact opposite way. And that didn't feel good, being stretched like that. But when I looked at the second choice, I noticed that my actions and my thoughts were kind of like holding hands and skipping down the path in the same right direction. They were aligned. That's what we mean when we talk about alignment. Okay? Alignment, your manifestation and your actions and your thoughts all moving in that same direction towards your destination manifestation. And this choice, the second option, felt easy and natural and complementary to each other. I'm going to go and I'm deciding ahead of time that I'm going to have fun and I'm going to look for all those reasons. Now, I know a lot of you guys might be thinking like, well, Brittany, how do you do that? Okay. You haven't gone yet. How can you decide in advance that it will be fun when you don't know who's going to be there, what you're going to do, what the situation's going to be like? How can you decide that in advance? How do you believe it too? Well, having fun and being amused are emotional states, right? And when you're a deliberate thinker, when you're a manifester, a creator of your own reality, you have trained yourself to no longer react to your surroundings. This is what I teach and I train my clients to do, meaning that having automatic thoughts in reaction to what happens around you, no. I hate to say it, but kind of lazy thinking. No, we've learned how to respond in a way that you want to respond. You feel the difference between reacting, that's kind of like automatic, and there's no thought behind that, whereas responding is taking that moment and deciding, actually, I get to decide how this goes. We want to respond, which means thinking thoughts on purpose, and oftentimes that even means thinking those thoughts in advance. The party could have been any sort of way, but I found reasons this time on my drive over in advance that felt believable to me. Okay. We're not just making shit up out of thin air, right? We have to find thoughts that feel believable, why I would have fun, and why I'd feel amusement by those thoughts that I thought. And that's how my thoughts and my actions were aligned in the same direction, in the direction that best supported my success for that evening. And I will tell you, it was awesome. I made some amazing friends, contacts I still keep in touch with today. I got several new clients from that one event. I mean, it was fantastic. It was amazing. I would go again in a heartbeat. So now let's think of an example where it might be the other way around, okay? Where your thought is the non-negotiable one. Now, of course, you're talking to a mindset coach here. I would say most often we have an action that we want, and it's about aligning up your thoughts with that action. But sometimes there are some instances where we just cannot budge or change a thought. And therefore, to minimize our suffering, we have to align our actions and accept our actions to line up with that thought. So sometimes there will be a time where you're just like, Brittany, this is what I'm committing to. And now I need my actions to kind of fill in the gaps around this so your actions can align. And I can think of an example of that too. So without getting into too many personal details, my sister decided to have her wedding during the summer of 2020. Okay. And I know it's kind of hard for us to remember now, all the fear and the concern around that time, that summer, and the height of COVID. This is pre-vaccine, right? But going to a large gathering at that time, to me, before the vaccine, I mean, that just felt like certain death, either to myself or at least to my closest loved ones, especially those that were older. Okay. And let me tell you, I tried every mindset trick, hack, perspective, whatever I could to try to convince myself that going to this wedding that really mattered to me, to someone who really matters to me, I was the maid of honor. Okay. That was a good idea. Like I tried so hard to get my mind and my thoughts to believe that going was going to be okay. And I'll tell you, I also recognize now, that's back when I was living in California. Now I live in Texas, and I actually moved to Texas towards the tail end of COVID. My sister lived in Georgia. I was living in California. Those two areas had very different attitudes and perspectives regarding COVID. And I know this because I felt that difference when I moved to Texas from California. The fear wasn't so palatable in the air, for better or for worse during that time. I will tell you, I even manifested, and I hate this. This is not a good example, but I even manifested breaking my foot during that time, which looking back on it now, I know that was a manifestation that was the result of all of this conflicted negative thinking about it. Okay. I manifested something to happen that would make it feel okay that I wasn't going to this wedding. Since I felt like my general fear just of COVID was not a proper enough excuse. So here I manifested this foot breaking, and I felt like that was more palatable for my family members to know, she broke her foot and that's why she can't travel. So after some broken bones and a ton of heartbreak and a lot of conflicted thinking, I finally made the decision that it was unsafe for me to go, and I didn't feel comfortable. And so my step one here was technically the thought that it is unsafe to go to a wedding during COVID. And that decision had been made sort of months before I lined up my actions with that decision. The heartache came from believing and having the thought that it was unsafe and that I was not comfortable going, and yet still moving forward with my actions as if I were going. And I thought that if I could just will myself to go against my thoughts, that things would I would all of a sudden become different. I don't know. But the closer I got to the wedding, the more I started to have daily panic attacks, the more it just became very abundantly clear to me that it was, in this case, worth ruffling some feathers to stay in my truth, to stay in that thought. That thought wasn't budging for me. Now, of course, looking back at this, I know it would have been possible, knowing what I know now, it would have been possible to make that action the non-negotiable, like that I was going, just kind of like I did for the other party. I could have done for this party too. And then work on getting my thoughts to align with it as the step 2. But at that time, I had a tremendous amount of resistance, as many of us did, around COVID and what I believed to be healthy. So I chose to make my thought the non-negotiable and then have my action eventually support that, which was not going to the wedding. And let me tell you, that just because you line up your thoughts and your actions doesn't mean that you feel hunky-dory and it's amazing. It was still very sad. Okay? I don't think anyone ever thinks that they're going to live stream their sister, who they're close with, her wedding. Like, I thought I would either be dead if I didn't go or I'd be there. I didn't think there was going to be ever this in between. I even dressed up in my bridesmaid's dress. Here I was sitting in my LA apartment with my broken foot, wearing this bridesmaid dress in front of the computer, live streaming this wedding, right? It felt like I was like a ghost, like I was watching this event that I always thought I'd be a part of, and yet I wasn't. But the way that my body and my mind healed through that moment, when I aligned my actions with my thoughts, and that was my first taste of knowing what it meant to make powerful decisions, aligned decisions. And it was huge. I would say it was the single biggest lesson of my own autonomy within my family, of making my own choices, even if they might not be choices that other family members would like or would make, and prioritizing myself and my health. And I would argue even their health and their exposure too. We'll never know. Even if that decision had the chance to be met with scrutiny from others. And actually, though, my family was incredibly supportive of my decision, which was genuinely a surprise for me. But I had to be prepared that they wouldn't be, and to make that decision anyways, even if they might not like it. Because that's how important alignment is when it comes to making your own decisions. And so that's why it's so important to find this alignment when it comes to the decisions that impact your manifestations. Manifestation is all about deliberate focus of what thoughts you will think and what actions you'll take. And as long as those thoughts and those actions are aligned with what you want to create, as long as they are pointed in the same direction, the direction of your manifestation. We like to call it destination manifestation, right? And you feel good about that direction, you will manifest what you desire. I mean, I literally think about any big manifestation that I've had in my life, and it comes down to the same process. Usually, let's say it's about wanting a thing. So let's take, I'm thinking of any number of manifestation I've had, like maybe manifesting a successful business. That was a huge one for me. So my step 1 there was making the choice. For me, I'll remember that moment for the rest of my life, sitting here in this very spot at this very desk, looking at my finances, this Excel spreadsheet with my husband, and looking at him kind of with wide eyes and being like, can I really do this? And taking that thought seriously for the first time in like 8 years. I felt the moment that decision to leave my cushy corporate job at Instagram, that's my action, aligned with my thoughts about it. I can actually do this, and I'm going to. See how those are both pointed in the same direction? Rather than the split energy that I had lived in for 8 years, which was, I'm not leaving my job, that's the action, but yet I still want to be an entrepreneur and I hate this job. Feel that opposite thought? You feel that difference? You feel how one pulls you in 2 different directions and that one brings you directly in the same direction? And what you know, it was when I got aligned that I manifested it. So I want you to go back to this decision that you're thinking about making right now. And to make it easier, let's make the step 1 an action. Okay? What is the action that you want to take for manifesting your desire? Again, there's no right or wrong answer. You get to make the right or wrong answer. What's the action that you want to take? You might have multiple choices in step 1, but you have to make one, and you might as well pick the one that you want most, since any of them can be right. Okay, got it? Have an action in mind? Now let's go to step 2. This is the 90% of the process. Align your thoughts to that decision of that action. Why might this be the very best thing you could do right now? How will you make this decision? How will you make this action be the best one for you? I mean, imagine yourself looking back at this decision and smiling with that knowing smile, remembering that moment as the moment where your thoughts clicked in and aligned with your actions. The moment you knew. See and envision your own success with this decision. And trust that it is so, because you will make it so through your thoughts. And if you continue to focus on those thoughts and those thoughts alone, you toss aside any other thoughts that had to do with choices that you decided to rule out, you'll be sending the universe instructions through your subconscious mind that will assist you in this endeavor. That is how we align energies and we manifest. So all you have to do is keep your thoughts aligned to your decision. So I just want to thank you, travelers. Thank you for joining us here today on this journey towards destination manifestation. You are amazing. And I know whatever decision you make, as long as your thoughts are powering it, I kind of think of the action like driving the car towards destination manifestation, and the thoughts are the fuel. The thoughts are the gas or the electricity that you put into that car that allows it to drive in the direction and take the actions that you need to get to that destination manifestation. And so if you haven't done so already, be sure to subscribe to this podcast. And if you've enjoyed this episode today, which I hope you have, and you've learned something valuable about making decisions, you can help others by recommending this podcast to your family and your friends on social media. I mean, can you imagine? I am sure there is someone out there right now in your network, your family, your friends, who's making a decision that will quite literally change their life. And what if your role in that decision-making process, what if you were the puzzle piece that brings them to this episode so that they can align their decisions in a way that's going to help them most? I mean, think about it. I love it. I love that we all play a role in each other's manifestations. So when you share this episode online, be sure to tag me. I'm Britt, that's 2Ts.Hoopes, that's 2 O's on most platforms. So be sure to mention the show in your post. And when I'm tagged, I'll be sure to shout you out on an upcoming episode. And so thank you. Sound good? All music for this podcast is by A-Cubed. And remember, make a decision and line up with it. I'll catch you next time.
I don't know.